Hey, what's up everyone? Eduardo here with a new video to talk about my favorite go-to lens when it comes to shooting in the studio, the Tamron 28-75mm f2.8. So the majority of my photography work consists of shooting indoors in the studio, and I'm always going back and forth between shooting full body, 3/4, and close-ups. While it would be great to use prime lenses all the time, it wouldn't be that ideal for my style of shooting because I am always constantly going back and forth between different focal lengths. And if I were to shoot with primes, then that means having to swap out lenses every time I want to get a different focal length or a different feel to the image. Now that's not to say that I don't use primes in the studio, because actually my go-to for headshots is the Sony A7C f1.8, which is a great lens for headshots, which is what I primarily use it for. But for 90% of my studio work, I always have the Tamron 28-75 attached to my Sony A7 III. So let me go over 2 quick reasons why I really like this lens for studio work. So first and foremost, the biggest advantage that any zoom lens has over a prime is the ability to allow you to change focal lengths without having to swap out lenses and stay in the same spot. This lens isn't any different, and when it comes to my style of shooting in the studio, I benefit from it very much because I like to get different looks by zooming in and out, so that way the client can see different styles and different looks that a different focal length will provide. And so it just gives me a lot more versatility when it comes to presenting work and capturing work for clients. For example, I can start off by taking a couple of photos at the wider end between 28 and 35 millimeters, and that way I can get full bodies, and then I can move on to 3/4 shots, so that way I can shoot maybe, let's say, at the 50 mil range to give the client even a different look, and then I can punch in all the way to 75 and provide more close-ups at the telephoto end. And as I said, it's a zoom, so it pretty much allows me to stay grounded in one single spot. And from that one spot, I can just switch from 28 to 50, from 50 to 75, and provide different looks from just one spot. Now that might sound a little bit lazy, but the reason why it really benefits me greatly is because my studio space is actually pretty small, and I have strobes that are connected by wire to get power, and sometimes they're kind of laid out around me. And so for me, because of my studio space being so small, it just allows me to stay pretty much grounded in one spot and zoom all the way from 28 to 75 and still be able to provide different styles and different feel to one look. The other thing that I also like about it being a zoom is that it just allows me, instead of having to move so much back and forth, say if I was on a 35 or a 50 and if I wanted to go wider, I would have to move back, or I would have to walk forward. What I like about the fact that it's a zoom is that I can just simply rotate the zoom ring, get a different angle, and then I can also just focus on 2 things: my composition, and 2, giving the models directions. And it's just one less thing to have to worry about as a photographer when you're trying to, deliver really great images for your clients. It's just one less thing that you can just not have to worry about, and just, like I said, stay planted, zoom in and out, and focus on the shot. But the unique appeal of this lens, depending on how you look at it, is that zoom range of 28mm to 75mm. Now, I will admit that at the time of buying this lens, I was a little bit skeptical for 2 reasons. One being that 24 to 75 was the norm, and that's the only type of zoom lens that I knew at the time when it came to this zoom range. And so I was a little bit skeptical having to not get that extra 4mm and start at 28. And 2, because I was also more interested in video production at the time of buying this lens. I wasn't sure, again, if I wanted to start at 28 as my widest and not have that 24. And so ultimately I just decided to get it, and I told myself that I would make it work. And I'm glad I did, because ever since I've had it, it's been the one lens that pretty much stays on my camera the entire time. This lens weighs in at 1.21 pounds or 550 grams, and when it's paired up with my Sony A7 III, it's a very comfortable combo to hold in the hands. I've used this combination of camera and lens for many shoots, especially ones that are just very long and I'm on my feet constantly and I'm always doing handheld. I don't use a tripod, and so that's also another reason that the overall feel, the weight, and the build of this lens, it's just great for me personally to use in my studio shoots. Whenever I have this lens attached to my camera, I'm not on a tripod, I'm always doing it handheld, and that's only because it allows me more freedom to move around and capture different angles. Combine that with the zoom on this lens, it just allows me to move freely with a little bit of space I have to capture different angles, and if I were to be on a tripod, it would just be more limiting. But it's because of the weight and the overall finish of this product that I really enjoy using it in studio. Another thing that I really like about this lens is the zoom ring. That is the one thing that I'm constantly always using on every shoot because I'm always zooming in and out. It would suck if this had sort of a sticky zoom ring, as I've experienced in the past, mainly with kit lenses. Those types of zoom rings, you know, have a little bit of a stuck feel to them. You try to slightly turn it to get a smooth zoom, and you have to crank it a little bit harder and then you just overshoot it, but that's mainly with kit lenses. With this one though, it is very smooth. You can start rotating it easily, and it does have a little bit of resistance, but it's not enough that you'll overshoot it as you would with other zoom lenses that have kind of that sticky feel. With this one, it's very much smooth, and I've used it on countless shoots, and I don't think there's ever been one instance where it's ever crossed my mind that I wish the zoom ring was smoother, because it just works fine. I don't think I've ever had that issue with this lens, and it's great because a zoom ring, you want it to zoom in softly, smooth, and this one definitely does that. So there you have it. Two quick, I did a little bit more than 2 reasons, but either way, there you have it. Those were reasons that I really like the Tamron 28-75mm f2.8 lens when it comes to shooting in the studio. I might do some other videos about outdoor shooting. For those, I definitely love to go with the primes because of the low aperture that they offer. But for in studio, the Tamron 28-75mm has been my go-to for the past 4 years that I've owned it. Now keep in mind, this is the first generation, the first version. Hopefully this one continues to perform the way it's been for me for a couple more years and I won't have to upgrade. I know that there are a lot of photographers out there that shoot different style of studio photography. You know, some shoot with primes, others shoot with zoom. So I would love to know, what's your favorite go-to lens when it comes to studio shoots? Are you a prime photographer or a zoom photographer? Go ahead and let me know in the comments. I will say that if my studio had way more natural light, I would definitely use more prime lenses because I'll be able to take advantage of that low aperture. But unfortunately, as I've mentioned, my studio is on the smaller side and it's also not very well lit. I rely on flash. But if I did have a studio with a big bay window or, you know, a lot of natural light coming in, I would definitely be more of a prime lens person because I also love the feel of that. But for now, this Tamron 28-75mm has been my go-to, and I don't see that changing for the near future. But anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one. See ya.